From James Gunn's ambitious plans for DC's future to Danny and Michael Filippo being super hesitant to work on his vision, here's why Gunn's DC Studios was turned down by these directors. Starting with the A24 directors who weren't exactly supportive of the whole idea. Now, in case you didn't know, James Gunn's DC Studios was turned down by the first two directors they asked to work on the new DCU. After Gunn announced the first 10 projects that will be part of his Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters plan, the new co-CEO of DC Studios was working hard to get his first group of creatives on board to make that slate happen.
One of James Gunn's secret strengths is his ability to take characters that people have never heard of and imbue them with personality and life and fun and backstories such that you end up really caring about them enormously.
Recently, it was revealed that James Mangold would be the director of Swamp Thing. He was the first director for the franchise to be named. 2 months later, another actor, Frank Grillo, also confirmed that he was moving from the MCU to the DCU. He said that he would soon play a part in the DC story that he couldn't say anything about yet. Back then, the prospects for the future looked good, but even though these two were good choices for DC, DC Studios hasn't been able to find any other good people to work there. Then he was turned down by two possible DCU directors. Danny and Michael Filippo said on an Instagram live show that they'd turned down an offer to direct a new DC Universe project. When asked how their meeting with DC Studios went, Danny said that the pair was offered a job, but they decided not to go for it at the moment, sticking with their own work but keeping their options open, which raises the question of how they felt about the new slate. Cause, like, they didn't have bad things to say about the DCU or anything though. In fact, they made it clear that they were looking forward to seeing it. Their response was unexpected because they'd announced it with a lot of excitement before. Early in February, they shared that they'd met with DC to talk about making a movie or TV show and asked if they should take the job. But wait, you're probably wondering, who are these guys and why did they reject such a big studio? You see, Danny and Michael Filippo run a YouTube channel called Raka Raka, which is based in Australia. This year's Talk to Me was their first movie as filmmakers. This movie was made by A24 Films and was shown for the first time at the Sundance Film Festival in 2023. And the reason Gunn wanted them was that Rotten Tomatoes gave it an amazing 97% rating. This is the only movie that the two have put out so far, but their YouTube account has more than 1 billion views. While this was super disappointing to hear, I bet we're all wondering if they'll ever change their minds in the future. Will the Filippo bros ever be in charge of a DC movie? Since the new DC universe isn't supposed to start until sometime in 2025, James Gunn and his team still have a lot of work to do to get these new projects going.
The director's vision and the vision of the writers is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us.
Even though these two aren't the only ones to turn down a DC project, like, come on, even Batman actor Ben Affleck did the same thing. It still might not be too late for them to join Team Gunn. James Mangold is set to direct Swamp Thing, and James Gunn will write and direct Superman Legacy, which will come out in 2025.
And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you guys on this grand adventure. Thank you so much.
But since Chapter 1 doesn't start for a while and many entries are still under wraps, the Filippo brothers have more than enough time to find the right project from the new DCU. And it'd be refreshing to see their take on the brand new movies. Everyone's been feeling a little on the fence about all these new changes that Gunn's bringing. Some love them, while others miss the old thing. But here's the thing. There are some key differences between James Gunn's DC universe and the DCEU. So far, Gunn has written and directed Superman Legacy, which is all set to release in 2025. He's talked about how the future Man of Steel movie from the DC universe will be different from the one from the DC Extended Universe. He said that fans shouldn't expect the DCU to tell the same stories as the DCEU, but instead should be ready to see these beloved characters go in new ways. He did clarify that he's not going totally off character though. Gunn plans on respecting Superman's past while bringing something new MCU to the table. Of course, his ideas didn't come out of anywhere. After the success of the MCU, Warner Brothers started their own shared world with Man of Steel, which was released in 2013. Snyder came back to direct Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016 and is listed as the director of Justice League in 2017.
Said, hey Zach, would you have any interest in making a Superman movie? Do you have any interest in it? And I was like, yes, yeah. I began the process of Man of Steel.
Even though Joss Whedon is said to have reshot most of the movie after Snyder left the project, people think that the 2021 Snyder Cut is Snyder's real take on the Justice League. He's directed a whole bunch of other movies too that everyone refers to as part of the Snyderverse, which is all good and fine.
Even when I was in high school, I would tell people I'm going to be a movie director, and they'd be like, okay. That's great, that's good.
And clears one thing up at least. James Gunn will start over with the DCU. Snyder's movies didn't have any funny parts, mainly because he didn't want them to be compared to the MCU. Instead, they told darker, more serious stories. Some people liked the changes Snyder made, but others thought that not all DC figures, especially Superman, should be shown in such a violent and dark way. Gunn's comments to Variety suggest that he'll try to find the right balance between keeping these characters true to their comic book roots and taking them in unexpected new ways. Of course, there's reason to believe that things might not turn out as great as he envisions. James Gunn's plans for the DCU might be too ambitious. His DC universe won't just be connected on the big screen. He wants to expand it to TV, cartoon shows, and video games. Projects that don't take place in his universe will be called Elseworlds. Many of DC's TV shows like Titans and Doom Patrol were recently canceled. This makes it seem like there may not be many projects outside of Gunn's DCU, and people are worried that this will limit the stories that can be told with their favorite DC figures in the future. Marvel's already dealt with a problem like this. Some of the most well-known versions of certain characters like Iron Man and Captain America came from the MCU. Still, how many other actors have been able to play these roles, and how many writers have been able to write about them? There are many issues with these Elseworlds. The DCU might face the same issues that the MCU did. Outside of the MCU and Marvel Comics, these characters have only been in video games and cartoons in the last 20 years, which haven't done nearly as well for Marvel as its live-action movies. Since Gunn's DCU includes both of these, this could mean that DC doesn't even have that. And if the new DCU moves into comic books, how much of DC will be based on the movies alone? For a long time, Marvel's projects outside of its movie world have been bad. Projects like Hellstrom and MODOK are almost invisible, and MCU shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways, which only had a one-way link to the MCU, haven't got the attention they deserve either. Other than Batman and Spider-Man, whose other projects in different forms still get some attention, any DC project that isn't part of the DCU continuity may get even less attention and fewer viewers than it did before. That said, that's all for why James Gunn's DC Studios was turned down by directors.